The first challenge is corporate capture. When we ask ourselves about the structural inequity that we face in our society, if you had to point to one thing and ask why, it is because of the capacity for corporations to capture our politics. And then to use our politics to reinforce their capacity to turn what was a free market economy into what is in effect an oligopoly. And you can see oligopoly across the board. If you want to, take a flight, you're going to pick one of 3 companies that'll take you there, right? Depending upon which of the airplanes that they bought, you're going to feel more or less safe. One of 3 companies. Let's say you get off your airplane, you decide to make a call. You're probably using one of 3 cell phone carriers, one of 3 cell phone manufacturing companies. Fact is that oligopolies have dominated the most lucrative markets in our society. Now, those oligopolies spend a ton of money to rent seek, to protect their rights in that market that they say they got because they were just so good at providing really great airplanes. And that has serious ramifications because once you have that kind of concentration of both money and power, the capacity to buy and sell politicians allows you then to buy and sell the means of government. And if we believe that government in a free market society was meant to actually set the bounds of competition, when you have one of the participants in the market buying politicians, that's not a very good thing. We're seeing a rise in the amount of spending on both campaigns and in lobbying that is consistent with a concomitant rise in oligopolistic behavior and massive social inequality. In Michigan alone, the CEOs, the 12 CEOs of Michigan's the Fortune 500 companies earn on average 300 times as much as their median workers. That's in Michigan alone. Now, the second challenge is the challenge of white supremacy. It's the challenge of the argument that says that certain kinds of people are both better unto themselves, more deserving unto themselves, and more deserving of the time, resources, energy of our country. And I don't have to explain white supremacy or its logic. The fact of the matter is that the work of the Constitution itself, the work of the ideals of this country, if they've done work, has been about the slow and gradual defeat of that ideology. And yet we're seeing it roar back in some of the most heinous ways. Build a wall. Why? So that those brown folks don't come to our country. Ban the Muslims. Why? So those brown folks leave or don't come to our country. Blue lives matter in response to black lives. Why? Because they protect us from the black lives who we know inherently are dangerous. This is the logic of white supremacy as it plays out in our political culture. Now, the third challenge, which I actually think is the most important and the one that I want to concentrate on for the rest of the talk, is the challenge of how we as a left react. Now, I'm not assuming all of you are leftist. I'm just speaking for myself because Michigan is a 501c3 institution. But how does the left respond in a moment like this? Now, I want to be clear about something. The concept of identity politics is a concept of the right. It was created by the right. It was leveraged by the right. It has been engaged by the right toward conservative, white supremacist policies for a very, very, very long time. Stephen Douglas, when he was debating Abe Lincoln, said that this is a country for white people by white people. Those are the facts. But the term identity politics, it was coined by a group of African-American feminist leaders. They came together in an organization called the Combahee River Collective, and they issued a manifesto. And in that manifesto, they articulated a vision on politics that would bring people together across their various identity backgrounds with the argument that those folks closest to the pain should be closest to the power. In its original conception, it was intersectional, it was inclusive, it was empowering, and it was structural. The challenge that we have today is that that concept, like all things, have gone to Twitter to die. Is that the way that we now talk about identity politics has sieved it down to its least common denominator, which is just identity. And in 280 characters, right, you can use big words to express very small ideas. And the challenge that we have today is, what does it mean to embrace a politics that goes back to the ideals on which people like Audre Lorde agreed? And I'll just say this: you will never use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. That was Audre Lorde. And the challenge we have today is, what does it mean to embrace a politics that actually does the work of bringing us together around the ideals that we are going to need to embrace to engage those first two challenges that we face.